The photo that ended my 30-year marriage was taken by another man on his phone in a hotel room I have never been inside, and for a full year it sat in our family's cloud account, 2 thumbnails away from a picture of my grandson at a pumpkin patch. I found it on a Wednesday night while I was building my wife's anniversary gift. I'm 54, and I want to walk you through exactly how that happens to a man. We live in Georgia, about 20 minutes from the coast, married in 1996, 2 kids, grown and gone. Our son is 29, up near the mountains with his wife and our grandson. Our daughter is 27, close enough that she still shows up on Sundays and eats everything in the refrigerator. My wife and I had the kind of marriage people point at: coffee on the back porch, her hand on my shoulder when she walked past my chair. That's not me bragging. That's me telling you what I thought I had. The anniversary was coming up in October. 3 decades deserved more than dinner and a card, so I gave myself a project. Our daughter had put the whole family on one of those shared cloud storage plans a couple years back, after our son's boy was born. Every phone in the family backs up to it automatically. Every photo, so nobody ever loses a picture of that kid. Everybody's pictures pour into one shared family album. You tap yes once, the day she sets your phone up, and you never think about it again. $600 a year and worth every penny. My plan was simple. Go through the archive, pull one photo from every month of our marriage that I could find, and build a slideshow set to the song from our wedding. Play it at the party. Watch her cry in front of everybody. That was the whole dream. I also had one more surprise loaded up behind that one, and I need to tell you about it now so you understand what almost happened. My mother passed 2 years ago. She left me $184,000. That money had been sitting in an account with just my name on it since the day the check cleared, because I couldn't bring myself to touch it. We had talked for years about a little cottage near the water for when we retired. My plan was to stand up at that party, play the slideshow, and then tell her the cottage wasn't a someday anymore. I had the transfer form to move my mother's money into our joint account sitting in my desk drawer, filled out, signed, dated for the Friday after the party. 16 days. Remember that drawer. So, Wednesday night, I'm out in the garage office with a cup of coffee, going month by month through the archive. It's a good way to spend an evening, honestly. 20-some years of Halloween costumes and bad haircuts, and our daughter's softball teams. I got to last October. There's my grandson at the pumpkin patch, holding a pumpkin bigger than his head. There's a screenshot of a mattress ad my wife saved, because she screenshots everything and forgets it forever. And then there's a bar, not our bar, not our town, a bar 3 hours inland, full of people in their 50s wearing name tags. Her 35th high school reunion. She'd gone the year before, last October. One night, one hotel stay, home by Sunday lunch. She'd brought me back a keychain with a little brass shrimp boat on it. I remember she came home quieter than she left, and I remember deciding that reunions probably do that to everybody. You stand in a gym with the people you were 17 with, and you come home doing math about your own life. I explained it to myself in one sentence and never thought about it again. For a year, the first photo was the whole group at the bar, name tags and gray hair. My wife laughing in the middle in the green dress I bought her. Fine. The second photo was smaller, just her and one man, and his hand wasn't resting on her back the way a stranger's hand rests for a picture. It sat low, comfortable, like it had been there before. What I did next was not smart, and it was not calm. Nothing. I did nothing. I sat there with my thumb over the third thumbnail for what the clock says was 6 minutes. It did not feel like 6 minutes because the third thumbnail wasn't taken at a bar. The lighting was wrong. The lighting was morning. I opened it. My wife, asleep, her head on his chest, his arm stretched out long, the way your arm goes when you're the one holding the phone. Sheets, a nightstand that wasn't ours. A man I have never met in my life, awake, looking into the camera he was holding over my sleeping wife. The information under the photo said 7:42 a.m. The photo of the two of them at the bar said 11:58 p.m. the night before. I understood what those two timestamps meant before I wanted to. Here's the part I had to piece together later, so you're not sitting there yelling at your screen about how any of this got where I found it. She didn't take those photos. He did, on his phone, and he sent them to her on one of those messaging apps. The bar pictures went out that same night. The last one he sent the next morning. What she didn't know, what most people her age don't know, is that her phone was set to automatically save every picture that app received into her camera roll, and everything in her camera roll went straight up into the family plan our daughter pays for. She deleted the messages. I'm sure she deleted the messages. The copies were already in the roll by then, already synced, sitting in a folder she has never once opened, waiting for her husband to come along a year later, hunting for pumpkin patch pictures. She got caught by grandchild insurance, $600 a year. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in the garage and did the only thing that kept my hands steady. I verified. The reunion committee had a public page, and the dates matched that weekend exactly. The curtains and the headboard in that morning photo matched the hotel where the committee had booked a block of rooms for out-of-town classmates. The man had a name tag in the bar photo I couldn't quite make out, but I didn't need it because I recognized the face once I stopped shaking. There's a framed picture from her senior year in her mother's hallway, her at a dance in a blue dress, and the boy standing next to her in that frame is the same man lying in that hotel bed 30-some years later. The man she dated back before me, the one her mother still calls a sweet boy. I took screenshots of all three pictures with every timestamp showing and sent them to an email address I made that night, one she has no way into. Then I sat there until the sky went gray, and I made two decisions. She was going to tell me the truth before she knew what I had, and I was not going to raise my voice. I found the photos Wednesday night. I didn't say a word until Saturday, and I have to tell you about the Friday in between because it was the strangest day of my life. I moved through my own house like a stranger in it. She made us omelets that morning and talked about the party. She debated tablecloth colors. She kissed the top of my head on her way out to errands and grabbed her keys off the hook. And there on her key ring was that little brass shrimp boat swinging, the souvenir she handed me from that same weekend. Somehow it had ended up back on her own keys. I stood at the window holding my coffee and watched her back out of the driveway, waving at me through the windshield, happy. Whatever you think you do in that moment, I promise you, mostly what you do is stand very still. Saturday morning, back porch, both cups poured, her in the chair she's claimed since the kids were small. I asked her how the reunion was last year. She said, fun, weird, sad, why? I said, did anything happen at the reunion? And her face did something I had never seen it do in 3 decades. She didn't lie fast enough. I watched her decide to. Then she folded her hands and gave me the speech I now believe she had been rehearsing for a year in case this day ever came. It was one night. It was the man she dated in high school. Everyone had been drinking. Everyone was staying at the same hotel. She doesn't even fully remember deciding, and it meant nothing. Nothing. She said nothing so many times the word quit meaning anything. She said she almost told me 100 times. She said it never happened again, that she hasn't spoken to him since, that she has been the best wife she knows how to be for the last year, and that has to count for something. Then she reached for my hand and said the thing she thought was the finish line. It was a year ago. like enough time going by meant she had already paid for it. I moved my hand before hers landed. I asked her 2 questions. Did you know the photos existed? Her face went blank, and that's how I learned the answer was no, and that's also how she learned what I had. Second question, if I hadn't found them, were you ever going to tell me? And my wife looked at the marsh at the end of our yard for a long, long time, and that silence was the truest thing she said all morning. I slept in the guest room that night. That was Saturday. Sunday, she cried through the door for an hour, and I let her. Monday, she came at me organized. She'd found a marriage counselor. She'd found a couples retreat 3 hours north. She kept using the word we, like this was weather that had blown in on the both of us instead of something she drove home from. And Wednesday, when I told her quietly that I wasn't going to counseling, that I had an appointment with a divorce lawyer instead, my wife stopped being sorry. She stood up off that porch and looked at me like I'd slapped her. You're going to burn everything down, she said, over one night from a year ago. That meant nothing. You, not the man in the hotel, not her, me. She said I was choosing to end this family. She said forgiveness is what grown men do. She said her one mistake had a year of good behavior stacked on top of it, and I was acting like it happened last night. Somewhere in that week, I stopped being the man who got cheated on and became the man who was doing this to her. I still don't know the minute that switch got flipped, but it flipped for half the people we know. By that weekend, her sister had texted me 3 paragraphs about grace with Bible verses in them, and her sister has had a problem with me since 1998, so I knew the phone tree was up and running. Then she showed up on my porch in person, the sister, arms crossed, and told me marriages survive worse than this every day, and that throwing away a whole family over one night was the most selfish thing she'd ever watched a man do. I listened to the entire speech. Then I asked her one question. Did your sister mention the photos exist, or did she leave that part out? The arms came uncrossed. She left my porch quieter than she came up it. She screamed at me exactly once in this whole thing. My wife, that Wednesday, in the driveway. You are ruining my life over one night. I stood there with my truck door open and told her the plainest thing I said all month. No, I found out about it. Those are different jobs. The lawyer's office was 2 towns over Monday morning. The lawyer was a woman about my age, reading glasses shoved up in her hair, a legal pad she never once looked down at. I put the photos and the timeline in front of her and told it start to finish. She let me get all the way done. Then she asked me one question I did not see coming. Have you forgiven her? I said no. She said good, don't. And then she gave me a piece of law I want every married man in this state to hear, because I felt it land in my chest while she said it. In Georgia, if a divorce comes down to adultery, and the adultery is what caused the separation, the spouse who did it is barred from alimony. Not reduced, barred. Section 19, 6, 1. 30 years of marriage, with my paycheck close to double hers the whole way, would normally put me on the hook for support for a very long time, she said. So my wife's whole case, her lawyer's entire job, will be building distance between that hotel room and this divorce. That is why a year ago is her favorite sentence. If the affair is old news that the marriage already survived, the cause of the separation gets muddy. So here is what matters, she said. You found out on a Wednesday. You were in the guest room by Saturday. You are sitting in this chair right now. There is a straight, short, documented line from discovery to separation, and that line is worth more than you can imagine right now. Do not blur it. Then she took the glasses down off her head and said the part I'll remember when I'm 90. In this state, forgiveness is not just a feeling, it's a legal event. It's called condonation. If you move back into that bedroom, if you go on that couples retreat she found, If you stand in front of that party playing the happy husband and let the calendar keep rolling, the law can treat that as the marriage absorbing the affair, and that bar can evaporate. Her lawyer is going to pray you're weak for another month or two, she said. Every person calling you cold right now is lobbying you into paying for the hotel room another man rented. Stay cold. And there it was. Everybody kept telling me forgiveness would make me the bigger man. Nobody mentioned it would also make me the paying man. Then she asked about assets, and I told her about the house, my 401k, my wife's retirement account, and then my mother's $184,000, and the transfer form in my desk drawer, dated for the Friday after the party. She made me say that part twice. Then she explained it slowly, like she wanted to make sure it stuck. Inheritance in Georgia is separate property. It is yours and it stays yours, right up until the day you fold it into a joint account and start spending it on the marriage. And from that day forward, it belongs to the marriage. If you had moved that money, she said, we would be sitting here dividing your mother. 16 days. If I had settled for dinner and a card, or if my grandson had never been born and no cloud plan had ever existed, I would have merged my mother's money into the marriage as an anniversary surprise. Then I would have found those photos eventually anyway, because things like that always surface, and I would have been cutting her a check out of it. I keep a short list of things I thank God for, out loud. A 4-year-old holding a pumpkin is on it. The next few months were paper and silence. She hired her own lawyer, a young guy with a firm handshake who I think genuinely believed that first week that he was holding a lifetime alimony case. We sold the house. That part hurt worse than the porch conversation, if I'm honest. Standing in the hallway while strangers walked through saying, good bones, good bones. It sold for $412,000. We owed $91,000 on it, and after fees, we split what was left almost down the middle. She kept her retirement. I kept my 401k, and the two were close enough in size that both lawyers called it a wash. We split the furniture, and she took the good couch, which, fine. Mediation was one long day in a conference room with bad carpet. Her side came in with a story, and I watched her lawyer try it out loud. The marriage, he suggested, had really been over for years. Distant. Roommates, basically. The reunion was a symptom, not a cause. My lawyer didn't argue with him. She just opened the folder and slid photographs across the table, one at a time, from the family cloud. The anniversary dinner 2 weeks before that reunion. The two of us holding hands over the bread basket at that seafood place like a couple of teenagers. The trip to see my grandson a month before that, her asleep on my shoulder in the airport, 4th of July, her hand flat on my chest. Roommates, my lawyer said, don't take these. Nobody at that table said the word roommates again. And late in the afternoon, her lawyer finally said the word alimony out loud, real careful, like he already knew how it was going to go. My lawyer slid over the photo timeline and the guest room dates, said condonation never occurred, and they knew it, cited the section number, and asked pleasantly whether they'd like to argue this one in front of a Georgia judge. There was a recess. It was short. When they came back in, alimony was gone from the conversation, and it never came back. My wife looked at me across that table like I had stolen something from her, and I finally understood that in her head, I had. In her head, a year of being good had already paid for that night, and she was owed a future. Watching the real bill arrive was more than she could stand. She's living at her sister's now. The party never happened, obviously. I canceled the venue and the caterer myself, and the deposit I lost is the only money in this whole thing I don't regret. Our son took it the hardest, being far away with a young family. He calls me more than he used to and doesn't say much, which is how the men in my family say a lot. Our daughter, the one whose cloud plan caught it all, went to her mother for one of those talks and got the newest version. Her mother told her we'd basically been separated already, that the marriage had been finished for years, that the reunion barely counts. One problem with telling that story to our daughter: she has the same photo archive I do, the same one her mother still doesn't fully understand. She scrolled to 2 weeks before that reunion, turned her phone around, and held up the breadbasket picture. Same evidence, second time. She didn't yell at her mother. She told me she just got up and walked out. That cloud account is the most honest member of this family. The papers went final on a Friday morning. It took 7 minutes in front of a judge who never fully looked up. I shook my lawyer's hand in the parking lot, and she said, "Go do the thing," and I did. I drove out to the coast with the transfer form from that desk drawer folded in my pocket like a ticket, and I put my mother's money down on a small blue cottage 2 streets off the water. Nothing fancy, a porch, a mailbox, a bedroom nobody else has ever slept in. While I was packing out of the old house, I found that brass shrimp boat keychain in the junk drawer where she'd left it behind, and I set it on the windowsill of the empty living room for whoever lives there next to wonder about. First morning in the cottage, I took my coffee out on the porch and sat there in the quiet 54 years old, starting over, and I waited to feel ruined. That's her word for me still, to anybody who'll listen. He ruined us over one night. But the tide was coming in, and the coffee was hot, and my phone buzzed with a picture of my grandson in a superhero cape, delivered straight to my new porch by that same cloud account. It never showed up. One night, a year ago, her math never worked because the night was never the whole bill. The year was 300 and some mornings of coffee on the porch, hand on my shoulder, best wife she knows how to be, with that hotel room sitting in her head every single one of those mornings. That's not one mistake. That's a year of them, one morning at a time. I didn't end this marriage. I just finally saw it for what it was. See you in the next one.